Inspired by U.S. protests, some Belgians want colonial king statues removed.
Here's a summary of the article.
Brussels, inspired by global protests at the death of unarmed black American George Floyd, some 30,000 people in Belgium have signed 2 petitions to remove statues of the country's colonial-era King Leopold II, whose troops decimated Congo in the late 1800s. His petition in French and Dutch on Change.org calls for the removal by end June, saying Leopold II has no place in multicultural Brussels, which bills itself as the capital of Europe. In the Belgian city of Ghent, a bust of Leopold II was covered in red paint and daubed with "I can't breathe" words spoken by Floyd as he was pinned down by the neck, according to photos posted on Twitter. Another statue was set on fire near the city of Antwerp, Belgian media said. Many younger Belgians say they are ashamed that Leopold II continues to be honoured when millions of Congolese are estimated to have died between 1885 and 1908 after the monarch declared the African country his personal property. Leopold's troops were ordered to collect the hands of victims, who were often shot for resisting slave labor. The country's status as a wealthy European country can be traced to its success as a trading economy in the colonial era.
This post received a score of 34,000, with an upvote ratio of 90%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Wasn't he especially cruel in the Congo?
Cruel is a massive understatement.
Pretty much anything would be an understatement. This dude was right up there with Hitler in terms of sheer assholery. Leopold II ordered cannibals to eat the children of slaves who didn't fill rubber quotas. There's a famous interview of a guy who had both his hands cut off, only to return home and being told his children had been eaten as well due to him failing his quotas again now that he had no hands. He's possible one of the greatest assholes since post-Renaissance times.
The other fucked up thing is the whole incentive of the chopping of the hands punishment. Plantation owners had to meet quota, but they could get away with showing they tried by turning in chopped off hands, and get paid almost as much. It was easier to just chop off hands than actually try and produce rubber, and brought in about the same amount of money to the plantation.
From what I remember of this story, eventually they didn't want to keep the hands anymore, as presumably they didn't really want piles of severed hands about the place. So they'd turn up, show them, get paid, and leave with them. So it turned into a constant loop of severed hands. Edit. Wow, this has by far exceeded all of my previous upvotes combined. And it's about severed hands as currency. I guess I've found my Reddit calling. This is like the snake bounty that lead to snake breeding, but way more fucked up.
Perverse incentives. Like that time in middle school when kids were making crossbows out of pens. The administration offered kids $5 for each one turned in. Kid I knew would just make them and turn them in to the teachers to make that paper.
They should have had a rule: there are X students, we pay X times for a crossbow, after that we cut hands.
This is justice.
Surprised these statues even exist. He committed genocide and enslaved an entire country.
I was pretty surprised to see it when I was in Brussels. Had a tour of Parliament there too, and the guide was pointing out the various kings in the paintings of them swearing their oaths of kingship before Parliament. When he got to Leopold II, he pointed him out and described him as famous for not being a very good person.
That's an understatement.
I don't disagree.
Want to preserve history? Move that shit to a museum with a nice display that details exactly how much of a cunt this guy was. Same goes for any of the Confederate monuments in the US.
The Belgians did. They totally remade their horrible Museum of African History, trying to be quite sensitive. There is still debate about whether or not they did it the right way, but it's a huge step forward. It was closed for a decade to do it.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.